Smith. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be your nurse for today. It's nice to meet you. I'm going to go ahead and do 2 patient identifiers now. So can you tell me your name and date of birth? John Smith, 5'5". That correctly matches your bracelet. Do you have any allergies that I should be aware of, Mr. Smith? No? Okay. All right, great. So it sounds like you have some congestion going on. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some trach care. We're going to get everything cleaned and we're going to suction you today if that's okay with you. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and close the door for privacy. I'm going to come over. I'm going to wash my hands. Initially, I'm going to start with clean gloves. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get my supplies ready. So I have a trach care kit. I have my suction kit, as well as my inner cannula here, and I have sterile gloves for the procedure itself. I'm also bringing in sterile saline as well as peroxide, and I'm going to take in a alcohol hand sanitizer. That way I can clean my hands prior to putting on my sterile gloves. So during this procedure, I am going to go ahead and place a pulse ox on my patient. I want to monitor my patient's pulse ox throughout the entire procedure. I'm doing this because whenever we are suctioning, we're not only suctioning out mucus plugs that are in the bronchial area itself, we're also suctioning out that patient's oxygen. So I always want to keep a good monitor on his vitals as I'm doing this. All right, sir, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the oxygen all the way up. Initially, I'm going to grab a red biohazard bag for any of my soiled materials that is going to be removed from the patient. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift and remove my old dressing, removing any kind of exudate or anything like that that is attached to the patient itself. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and I'm going to place that there in my red biohazard bag. Now I'm going to go ahead, remove my old gloves. Now at this time, I'm going to go ahead and monitor my patient. So I am checking heart rate, I am checking O2 sats, and I am monitoring my patient's respiratory rate. Everything looks okay as of right now. So as I have my oxygen turned all the way up, I'm going to tell you to go ahead and take 5 or 6 good deep breaths for me as I open up my equipment. So I'm going to alcohol my hands. I'm going to open up my suction canister. I'm going to open up my trach care kit. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and don my sterile gloves. I'm going to alcohol right before I put these on, stepping back. Okay. Always start with my dominant hand first, so making sure to grab in between the cuff here. I'm rolling that over my wrist. My second hand, I'm going to grab under the cuff, moving my thumb out of the way, minding my thumb because usually that's where you break sterility. And up over my hand. So now at this point, I am ready to go ahead and set up my sterile field. So I'm going to start with my drapings. I'm going to place the shiny side down on my patient and just dropping those drapings. The next aspect that I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my gauze for cleaning, as well as my split gauze that I will replace at the very end of the procedure. I'm going to separate that. There's my gauze for cleaning. And I also have some pipe cleaners and things like that, just in case there are any kind of stuck-on materials. Never, ever, ever putting these down the actual trach itself. So this is just to go around the trach. All right. And then finally, I have my trach ties, just in case this patient needed those cleaned. My inner cannula. And then my actual suction tool itself. All right, so at this point now I'm going to have a clean hand and a dirty hand. I've monitored my patient's O2 sat, heart rate, respiratory rate. He has taken a 5 or 6 really good deep breaths on high flow oxygen at 100%. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have a clean hand and dirty hand. So I'm going to pull my suction canister here with my dirty hand. I'm going to take and attach my suction to my suction canister, making sure that I do not contaminate this suction canister. All right, so now, sir, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start the procedure. So I'm going to remove the oxygen. At this point, I'm going to go down. Never apply suction on the way down. I'm going to go down until I meet resistance. As I meet resistance or my patient coughs, now at this point, I'm going to rotate and suction intermittently on the way out. Okay. Back down immediately with my oxygen, waiting a full minute in between passes. You have to limit passes to 2 times on this patient. I can never go down more than that. I want to limit my downtime to 10 seconds down with the suction as well. So I've waited a full minute. I've checked his O2 sats. Still satting a little bit low because he has some mucus. His heart rate looks good. Waited a full minute. He's took a good deep breath of oxygen. Now we're going to go down for our second pass. So I'm up. I'm going down until I meet resistance or he coughs. He is coughing, rotating on the way out, and back down on the oxygen. Now at this point, I am finished with the passes of suction. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect my suction canister, drop that over into my red biohazard bag. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start the cleaning process, sir. I've looked at your O2 sats. I'm checking your heart rate and I'm checking your respiratory rate again. Everything is looking great. You feel okay? Great. All right. So now at this point, I'm going to have my buddy come in. So Valerie, if you can you pour 50% of the sterile saline and peroxide in this container? And then just sterile saline itself in my second container. Thank you. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start my cleaning, again minding that I have the dirty hand and the clean hand. So I'm going to start with my clean hand first. Okay. I'm going to kind of wrap this around my fingers like this. I'm going to start with my 50-50 solution, so my peroxide and my sterile saline. I'm going to go up with the oxygen, and I'm initially just cleaning his faceplate. Back down on the oxygen. Again, 50-50 solution. I'm going to go to the right side of the trach and the back down on oxygen. Again, my 50-50 solution. And I am going to go to the left side of the faceplate and then back down with my oxygen. Okay. Now that I've cleaned everything with peroxide, say there was anything that was stuck on, I could use my pipe cleaners. I'm not noticing that, but I would do those in the same motion with my 50-50%. Now I am going to begin cleaning with normal saline only to remove that peroxide from the skin. So sterile saline, faceplate, back down, oxygen. Sterile saline to the right, back down with oxygen. Sterile saline to the left, and then back down with my oxygen. So now at this point, we're going to go ahead and dry the area. So again, I just want to remove any kind of moisture because we don't want any skin breakdown. So faceplate, to the right, and to the left. Okay. All right, so at this point, we are finished with the cleaning procedure. So now we're gonna go ahead and we are going to change out his inner cannula. So I'm going to place my oxygen up. I'm going to grab the inner cannula, twist slightly to the right to remove the old inner cannula. And again, that goes in our red biohazard bag. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my new inner cannula. I'm gonna start over to the left side of the patient and kind of rotate that in until you hear it click. Okay, inner cannula has been replaced. So now at this point, if the patient needed trach ties replaced, what I would do, since I'm working alone, is I would go ahead and I would retie these trach ties. I would restart with one side, wrap it around to the other side, and then I would remove my old. I would place 2 fingers underneath the trach ties to make sure that I haven't cut off carotid circulation. And then the final step that I'm going to do for this patient is I'm going to grab my split dressing. And at this point, I do not have to be sterile. And I'm going to replace my split dressing gauze underneath the faceplate. Place the patient back on oxygen. I'm going to ensure that this patient stays on high flow oxygen for the next minute after the procedure, checking his O2 sats, checking his heart rate, checking the respiratory rate. Then after a minute, I'm going to turn my oxygen down to the correct flow meter. I'm going to lower my patient's bed. I'm going to remove my gloves, wash my hands, and leave the room.